What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video today. And today we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the latest game from Machine Games. And I'm going to be talking about why it's one of my favorite games of the year, as well as who's this game for. So let's get into it. So like I said, this game is being developed by Machine Games, previously known from the Wolfenstein games. This is Xbox flagship exclusive entering this Q4. There is set to be released on PlayStation sometime in the spring of 2025, but we're not quite sure yet. This was a game that I've had on my radar since the moment it was announced, because I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan, and everything that I saw from the gameplay, from the being first person to a lot of the action sequence and the little quirks that we see from the movies, immediately I was sold that once this game comes out, I'm playing it immediately the day it drops. So let's get into what some of the things that I saw from the story. So this game takes place right after the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but the most I could probably say is that the game starts off with somebody breaking into Indiana Jones's college/museum. He goes off to discover who took this specific artifact and why they did it. As someone who's a big fan of the franchise, this game falls right in line with the tone of the previous original trilogy. It has the same kind of quirkiness about it, the fun moments and all the adventures that you go across and all the friends that you meet along the way. And pretty much this game starts off exactly shot for shot to kind of almost seem like to showcase how true they stayed to the movies by basically doing shot for shot of the original scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he's in Peru trying to get this idol and has to weigh it out, and then obviously it doesn't work out and the ball comes chasing, you have to get out of there. So they pretty much did that to the T. But as for the rest of the game and pretty much the true meat and potatoes of what Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is, basically Indy uses his connections from the past and also having a love interest, as well as having these small little humor scenes and traveling around the world to try to defeat, quote unquote, these Nazi scientists that are taking over or want to use these powers from whatever this artifact might provide. And Indy's job is to pretty much stop that and put it in the right hands. So basically the core concept of this game is there's three main hubs with a couple smaller ones in between those three main hubs to kind of help move the story along and kind of see different set pieces in different places around the world. I actually love the format that they did here. It made room for the game to be bigger with side quests and progressions to be unlocked. And honestly, this kind of format is one of the things that surprised me the most about this game, because I haven't quite seen something like this exactly. So it kind of takes this quasi open world-esque, but also very linear at the same time. And basically, within these hubs, you have all these different side quests and things that you can complete, as well as mysteries to discover, seeing certain hidden parts of it. And yeah, now let's get a little bit into the narrative structure and the character development that we've seen. So the voiceover that is being played by Indy, that guy knocked it out of the park. He sounded exactly like Harrison Ford back from 40 years ago when those movies were first being developed. I thought they did a great job of diving into the companion that you have, which is Gina. They kind of really do a great job of explaining why she's on the mission and why it's important to her. And then they even dive into this even more so through the side quests, which I thought was a really great way to kind of even further home why you have this attachment to this character and why Indy, obviously towards the end of the movie, towards the end of the game, slowly starts to get feelings for her. In general, it felt like everybody you met along the way had a purpose in the journey. So whether it be the priest that you meet in the Vatican, the love interest of Gina's sister in Egypt, as well as the tribe in the village in Thailand, it feels like every single person that you meet, there's a purpose for it. I also too want to bring up the antagonist, the scientist for the Nazis. I thought he was portrayed very well, and I love that they portrayed him as just being evil for the sake of being evil. And I feel like nowadays that is super uncommon to come across. It seems like all these writers want to give these villains a reason why they're bad, or trying to make you sympathize with them more. This one's not so much like the case. It's just he's just a terrible person, and he wants to do terrible things. And you don't want to feel for him. You don't really feel for him, and I love that they did that. They're like, no, they don't want to even give you a reason why he might be doing this. It's just He's a Nazi, he is bad, he wants to take over the world, he wants to help Hitler do whatever he wants to do. So now I want to dive a little bit into the gameplay mechanics that I've come across during my playthrough. The general gameplay loop of this game was a lot more stealth than I thought. It was pretty much to the point where it was necessary to be stealthy throughout these games. Almost any section where there was enemies that were probably more than 3 of them at a time, you're pretty much done. There's nothing you can do. You can't really fight your way out of it. You definitely can't shoot, because the moment you shoot, alarms go off and all this stuff. So I personally found that a little disappointing. I'm not a huge fan of stealth combat, so that's kind of me too. And also, by the way, the trailers lined up pretty much up until the gameplay announcement. I thought it was going to be a little bit more actiony, but not so much. I would have liked to seen a little bit more action and escape sequences. We did get moments of that, but I would have genuinely liked to see a little bit more of that. I felt like it was just a ton of stealth. And speaking of the stealth, one of the biggest issues that we came across was the AI, because the AI was just not very smart, and they were just really stupid. It was inconsistent at times, and also from what I've heard from people who played on multiple difficulties, that they didn't really get any harder. The most that the difficulties really did was change the damages they put on you. So pretty much 2 hits and you're just done, or 1 hit and you're done. And at times it feels like you could walk right past somebody, knock them out with their partner right next to them, and they do nothing, and then you can go knock them out real quick. Sometimes it would work, and I will say, for me personally, this isn't a big deal to me, because I mostly came into this game wanting to play the story, wanting to see this essentially next Indiana Jones movie, and also solve puzzles in ruins, and not so much for the stealth. You know, that was kind of like another gameplay element that they obviously have to have. But my favorite parts when it came to this game was getting into those ruins, in those caves, solving out how to get to the end of whatever idol or artifact you're trying to get, as well as the story that's being developed between Indy and Gina, as well as the antagonist, and getting closer to him, as well as Indy's friends. Like, that was the stuff that really resonated with me the most. So while some people might have loved the stealth, or some people would have hated the stealth, or also hated the fact that the AI was so dumb, in a way, for me personally, I'm kind of glad it was that way, because that means sometimes you could just run right through them and then it would just disappear and nothing happens. So that's kind of like how I felt on these certain gameplay mechanics. Now, as for the gameplay elements, such as the combat, exploration, and puzzles, I'm first going to start off with the combat. I think the combat mechanics are okay. I think they could be a little bit better. Sometimes it just feels not as smooth or as responsive. Sometimes the latency could be a little off. I don't know if anybody else kind of felt that way. Like I said, I didn't think it was bad, but I thought it could be better. Now, as for the guns, I kind of briefly mentioned it. The gun mechanics are terrible in this game. They just suck. I used the gun maybe, I don't know, 2 missions. The guns are really there to be used as melee weapons that you could shoot if you wanted to. And there was moments where it was useful. And obviously there's certain set pieces that allow you to actually shoot, but there's no reloading. Like, you can't even reload outside of Indy's revolver, where you can reload each bullet individually. Outside of that, if you were to pick up any other machine gun or a bolt action rifle, once the clip was out, that was it. There was no reloading or anything like that. So that was a little disappointing. I would have liked to see that fleshed out a little bit more, but I understand that they're trying to stay true to the movies, because obviously Indiana Jones in the movie, not that he didn't shoot, he did have his classic pistol, but it wasn't like constant shootouts like you would get in any sort of like other FPS shooter game. But in general, I just would have liked to seen a little bit better gun mechanics, but maybe that was on purpose to, you know, kind of help people prioritize stealth more, instead of just going gun-ho into the facility or into the camp and taking everybody out. Now, there was a mechanic in the game where you could upgrade certain abilities that Indiana Jones has, and these are book upgrades. So you can find these books laid out throughout each level. You can find them. Once you find them, you purchase them, and there'll be things like increased stamina, you could reload faster, recover, melee faster, a couple of different things. Obviously, I haven't unlocked all of them, but I did find that they're not really necessary to complete the game at all. I mean, any of them that I came across, and I was able to afford, and I had the medicine bottles that you need to collect throughout each mission to then upgrade, I would do it if I had it. But I never really went out of the way to purchase these or try to find these because I never really felt the need for the ability to be buffed at all. And I probably they did that on purpose, and these are kind of more of for people who want to have a little bit more fun with it and try to do 100% of the game and go farther and just do more goofy stuff. But if you just want to go through, play the main quest and nothing else, you don't really need that at all. Now, as for the exploration, like I said, the 3 hubs are much bigger and deeper than you might think. Each section of the map feels like it has a dedicated purpose for being there, whether it's for side quests or main quests. And there are certain sections where once I beat the game and I went to go do some side quest, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know these certain like bowels of the map even existed. So it was pretty cool to see how much is still left on these maps that are just kind of untouched and that you don't really go through unless you accept some of these side quests. So like I said, I'm about 20 hours in the game, and I feel like there's still a lot for the game to offer, and that kind of leads me into my next point of the longevity of the game. The game, like I said, was a lot longer than a lot of people expected. You know, a lot of people are coming in here thinking it's going to be 10, 12 hours, something like that, which I would say it's about 13, 14 for the main quest, but you can pretty much double that and get into probably almost over 30 hours into this game once you try to 100% it and complete all the side quests and the discoveries and all these different things that you can try to do and complete. There's a decent amount of in-depth side quests at all. I mean, they're not just there to be there either. Like, they really play a good part into the story as a whole, which I thought was pretty cool, because sometimes you play some games and side quests, they might be fun, but they could be completely unrelated to the story. They, at least from the side quests that I've played so far, a lot of them are really intertwined with the story itself, and it kind of adds a little bit more depth to the story that you miss if you just go through the main quest. Because, for example, I'm running back and playing some of these field works for the Vatican, and now you're starting to understand why they're a little bit more on edge around Indy and why they're a little bit more skeptical about them, because you start to find all this dirt that they had on them. So that's pretty cool that they did that. Some of the side quests, they can be about an hour or two long, like, which is pretty surprising. I mean, that's really good. Like, that's one of the big things that shocked me about this game in total. There's also a lot of collectibles. There's these things called ancient relics that are kind of scattered throughout the game. And you can use, once you collect all these ancient relics, there's a big puzzle at the end of the game, and you can kind of figure that out. I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't really sat down and tried to do that because I'm trying to go through all these old side quests that I kind of skipped upon when I was going through the main quest. But yeah, you can collect these as well as these medicine bottles, which the medicine bottles can be used to, once you have a certain amount of medicine bottles, then you can go to the next tier of whatever upgrade that you might have that they're selling at the shop of one of the main hubs. As for DLC, right now, all we know about DLC is that if you order the premium edition of the game, they're saying that what's going to be included is the Order of the Giants DLC. So we don't really know much about it yet. The narrative designer said the only thing I can say is that there's going to be some exploring of some myths that you'll learn about the Vatican, as well as find out more about the hidden history of Rome. And I also think too, they might dive a little bit deeper into the Giants and how they're intertwined with the Vatican. I know they kind of explain it, but without giving too much of the story away, the Giants are they're a pretty big deal into why Indy is doing what he's doing. So I'm excited that they're willing to invest in some DLC for this game, because so far I'm loving it, and I would love to dig deeper into these different story and kind of go harder, because I don't expect it to really be completely different from the main story. I think every DLC that's going to be included is just going to add to it, just add a little bit more lore to this specific adventure that Indy is on. And I suspect that after this DLC is successful, they're probably going to do one for Egypt as well as for Thailand, and pretty much have a DLC for all 3 of the main hubs. Now, as for some of the more technical parts of the game, like the graphics and the audio, the visual of this game is incredible. The environmental design for each hub and cave and puzzles has immense detail. Like, sometimes I just look at these artifacts and I'm just like, wow. Or just look at some of these levels. It's just incredible. And the level design and the puzzle design for each mission was all unique and different, and never felt like it was very repetitive. They found a good way to each one that you've come across, you can't really use the knowledge from the previous mission to help you figure out this one. Like, there were some where I'm like, even towards the end of the game, I'm like, I don't know what to do here. Luckily, I kind of figured it out eventually, but there's some things, especially when you get into the next hubs or different hubs, there's things that you just don't normally do, or you would have done in the beginning of the game, that you're figuring out for the first time in the end of the game. So it never felt like I was really doing that same thing. I also thought they did a good job of not making it obvious as well with these puzzles. And also, the puzzles did a great job of matching the theme of the location where you're at. Like, for example, there's one part where you're opening a bottle of wine and you're pouring the wine into the bowl, and it opens up the door, and they kind of take the little elements of the locations of where they're at. So like, if you're in the Vatican, a lot of these things are related to wine, or taking pictures of these murals or of Jesus or whoever it might be. And then, for example, in Egypt, you're looking at these different, the pyramids or the Great Sphinx, or they did a great job of tying in the location of where you're at and not making it all kind of feel exactly the same, which I appreciate a lot. Now, one thing I will say is that there is a lot of cinematic cutscenes, for which some people might be too much for them. I mean, the cutscenes, there's cutscenes for even little stuff. Like, for example, there's moments where Indy just picks up a book and there's a cutscene for it, and it just feels like, I mean, do we really needed that? It feels like we could just picked up the book and then kept on going what we're doing. So some people might find that a little overboard. I'm not really mad at it. I've always loved games with heavy dialogue. That's something that I feel like it adds to the story, so none of that ever really bothers me like it does for other people, for example. As for audio, they use all the classic Indiana Jones sounds from the movies, the whips, the little quirkiness, all these different things that as soon as I hear it, I'm like, whoa, like those are sounds I haven't heard in a while, because I didn't get a chance to pre-watch a lot of the movies leading up to this game. But now that the game is out, I'm probably going to go take some time to watch some of those. But there are some of these where I'm like, whoa, like I forgot about those sounds. So they really did a lot of deep research and took a lot of those same audio cues, which I think is very satisfying for a lot of people who are fans of the movie. And like I said, the voice acting was just incredible. The guy who did Harrison Ford, he did all the same cadences and little stops and pauses and tones in his voice. Like, the guy absolutely nailed it. Now, as for technical performance problems, I never really came across anything. I played this on PC as well as on Xbox. It's a very demanding game on PC, so it's kind of hard to run if you don't have the system for it. So I would take that in consideration, but I never had really any issues. There was some slight glitches when it comes to looking at your map or pulling up the journals and trying to see your notes, because there's moments where it's like so zoomed in I can't even see it, which was kind of annoying when I'm trying to solve like certain puzzles or trying to crack certain codes for saves. So that was kind of like the only thing I really came across, but nothing game breaking, nothing super demanding. And honestly, the game ran pretty damn well. So I'm curious to see how well it would run on lower end systems, because they say it's very demanding, but I was doing pretty well, better than most. But granted, it is also a single player game with very tight spaces in a lot of times. So I'm going to end it off here with my personal impressions. The game gave me a lot of nostalgia, because as somebody who watched the original trilogy a ton as a kid, it truly felt like another movie in the franchise. And it should be treated as such, honestly. It even provides probably more depth and more like story and more lore than any of the movies even provided. So it's like it was an Indiana Jones movie, plus if they did like behind the scene footage or like an extended director's cut like they did for Lord of the Rings, where they add like an extra hour to the movie. That's almost what this game felt like. In terms of the story, exploration, puzzles, this game pretty much met all my expectations. I will say the amount of stealth in the game, like I said earlier, did throw me off a little bit. I wish there wasn't as much. But like I said, I'm not a major stealth guy, so there's people out there that might love that. I do wish you could fight your way through things a little bit more. Like I said, I think that would be a little bit more fun, a little bit more action sequences. I would have liked the fighting to be a little bit smoother in terms of combat and blocking and parrying and stuff like that, or just make it a little bit more satisfying. I would have enjoyed that a little bit more. But in general, my final verdict is, I would say if you're a big fan of the franchise, I would highly recommend this for you. If you're not, you may not find it as great as someone like me or people that you know who have loved the movies and watched the movies a ton. But if you do enjoy games like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, I would recommend it because this game does provide a little bit different gameplay loop from those games, but you still have that core of adventure and trying to solve puzzles and uncover and unlock secret hidden things that have been lost away for a long time. So if you like those games, I recommend this game. If you're an Indiana Jones fan, I would recommend this game. If you are just wanting to try something different and maybe you have Game Pass, I say give it a shot. But it might not resonate with you as much as somebody who falls in those other two categories. But if you guys have played the game, let me know down in the comments below. What do you think of it? Do you agree with some of the stuff I said? Do you disagree with some of the stuff I said? Let me know. And I want to thank you for watching. And if you're interested in more content like this, gaming reviews, news, discussions, please feel free to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content just like this. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.